Hey, what's up? Serena Apia here from thriftdiving.com, and this is part 3 of how I am tearing down and reupholstering this wingback chair. It was $60 from the thrift store, but it needed some new fabric, and you see it's got really good bones. So this is what it looks like now, and in this video I'm going to show you how I was able to finish tearing down the chair and adding the webbing. Next video, we're going to do the springs. So let's jump right into it. So if you recall from part 1 and 2, which you can also find below in the description, some links to watch that. I'm taking an upholstery class. I've never done a project of this size before. I've done some smaller upholstery projects, but not to this size. So I was very intimidated and decided that I was going to take an upholstery class and just, video all of the steps to show you in case you decide that you want to do a project like this. You won't necessarily have to do a class. You can watch this and learn. So we had class, and 30 minutes before class, I realized, oh my goodness, I didn't finish tearing this chair down. So very quickly in my driveway, I tried to tear down the rest of the chair, cutting the webbing, pulling back the parts of the seat, and removing some of that padding and just throwing it away. It was old, and I just didn't want to keep it. Now, keep in mind, when you do this, when you reupholster a chair and you throw all of these materials away, it's very expensive, what I'm finding, very, very expensive to repurchase everything. So just this padding that you see I'm removing, that alone for a bag of that padding was like $70. So that was a little insane, and I was not expecting that. So just keep that in mind. If you are tackling this project, there are some materials you are going to have to buy, and we'll do a final recap of this project once I get to the end. Right now, I'm just sort of taking you along on the journey, and then I'll recap at the end. But look, guess what I found inside of the chair? I found a dime. And this was kind of cool because I looked at the date on the dime and it said 1999. So that told me that this chair could not have been older than 1999. So I know that it had been reupholstered sometime during the last, gosh, I don't know, 99 is what, 18, I don't know, 18 years. So you can see here how the twine was actually tied to the springs, and this kind of worried me a little. I just thought it looked very confusing, so I couldn't wait to get to class and get some instruction from the teacher on how to do this. So I arrived to the class, and one thing that I hadn't done was to remove this part. I don't even know what you call it. Not all wingback chairs have it, but there were pieces of wood nailed down to the chair with this edging type thing. And the teacher said, well, Serena, it looks like you jumped ahead. You were supposed to remove that before you removed the lining. So you see here that I'm trying to remove this part. It's very difficult to remove it because, I didn't have a hammer or, anything like that. But when I was able to get it off, then I was able to remove the rest of the lining fabric that was underneath of it. I'm not going to reuse the wood. I will cut new pieces of wood, but I am going to reuse that little, I don't even know what you call it, that little tufted part. So I will reuse that. So once the wood was gone, I was able to just rip off the rest of the lining, and then I could get to the burlap. And remember, reupholstering is all about layers, so I had to remove that wood before I could get to the lining, before I could get to the burlap. So when I go to reupholster this, I'll start at the burlap. Well, of course, I'll start with the springs, and then I'll be covering it with the burlap, then with the lining, then with the wood. So I'll be doing everything in the reverse. And finally, I started making some progress, and there were the springs. And so I just used my scissors to easily cut them out. And when I flipped the chair over, then I had to cut out the webbing so that I could remove the springs. So progress, slowly but surely, but progress. Once the webbing to the seat was all cut out, I was left with these pieces that had tons and tons of staples. So make sure you have a really good staple remover because it will make the job go a lot faster. So then once it was all removed, it was time to measure for the new webbing. Okay.
So you want to calculate how many pieces we can put from on the back. Mm-hmm. This is a narrow part. Mm-hmm. And then to the front, you will fan it out the side. So being 21 divided by 3.5.
7 and a quarter, maybe. I mean 7 and a...
Okay, 7 inches is 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 times 7 is 21.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 times 2 is 6. So we should be able to put 6 of these here.
Okay.
So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6
Okay.
pieces. So having 6 of them here, and they're gonna be just head to head, it means that so right at the center of the piece, which is 10 and a half, one would be on that side, one would be on this side. So
Should you start at the middle?
let's start at the middle. Yes, we do want to start at the middle, since the middle ones are pretty much straight going toward the front. The other ones that are fanning out, they're gonna go to the extremes. Now,
Gotcha.
it is important to balance them. So if you put the right one, whichever one, the right one on first, then you want to do immediately after that, you want to do the left one. And then again, the other one. Right, left. Balance them as you go.
Right. So we start in the so this is 21. So 10 and a half is the center, and so we would put one to the right and to the left of that center line.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so the front, let's see, I'll let you do the calculations for the front. So we have
Looks like 25 and maybe 5/8.
25 actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. 25 and 5/8.
Okay.
So then see how much. Subtract 21 from 25 and 5/8. That should give you the spacing. So let me measure from here to there. Actually, 24 inches.
So we're marking it at 12.
Right. Actually, there's a good mark in the front. Yeah, let's count on that. Okay.
Right.
So I'm gonna go 1/4 inch this side and 1/4 inch that side for the front. That and that would be.
So again, just to reiterate, so we measure the narrow part, and then we narrow, and then we measure this part,
Right.
and then the difference between those two, then we divide that, and that's how we get the spacing.
Right.
Okay.
So again, that's, each person has her own way of doing things. So one can just eyeball it and say, oh, okay, this, that. So again, now 3 and a half, 3 and a half.
Okay.
Then 1/2 inch for the space in between them. Another 3 and a half would be the next one. And 1/2 inch. 3 and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 the other side. So the other two,
Perfect.
they would start here-ish.
Okay.
There. And they will go to the.
So you always fan them out, because most chairs are going to have because I think I noticed hers fanned out too, right?
Right. Most chairs have a narrower back and wider front.
Okay.
I mean, the most traditional chairs, let's call them. Like that. Okay, there we go.
So with the back and front measured, it was now time to add the webbing. This is a webbing stretcher, and I'll show you in a moment how we used it. But the main thing is that when you get started with the webbing, you have to start it in the front, and then you'll use the webbing stretcher in the back. Here's how we did it. So the first thing the instructor did was to put one piece of webbing starting at the very front center of the chair. Now you see that it's folded over. One row of staples is to secure it, and the other row that you see here is to flatten the top. You don't want that sticking out. So it's really secure, and now we can move to the back and use the stretcher.
Okay. Mark, we know where it goes.
Yeah.
It's gonna go on the edge. Usually like 45 degrees or so is good for a chair. For a sofa, it's gonna be much more, because you're gonna it's a much longer distance. So it comes here, pull in and pull in. Now you gotta decide on how much to pull. You can pull it so tight that you may be able to break this. We're gonna pass like a normal drum sound on this, which is a boom sound. We're gonna go to ding sound.
Ding.
This is boom.
Crystal.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Ding,
That's the
ding,
sound
ding,
we
ding, ding, ding. That's what we
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
So, now, I'm going to put these, I'll consider them temp temporary holds.
Temporary.
Yeah, they're not temporary staples, they're temporary holds. Because I'm not counting these to support the weight. This is just to hold the tension in place.
Okay.
These are the ones that will count on again back here. And now we're gonna flatten the edge. Oops, right on top of the other step. Webbing. This is where the stretcher was, but if I wanted to cut, I have to cut it like back here, so we would waste this much. So I left it at the roll. No, we can't cut this. It's best to use the back of your scissors, being such a tough material.
Nice.
So the other one starts here, ends up there exactly.
So that one will be right next to it, and then
Yes.
this one will be slightly fanned out.
Yes. And
Okay.
then the next one again will be fanned out a bit. Go here.
Nice.
And
So after he showed me what to do, I felt confident that I could take over from this point, and you'll notice that the spacing between them is 1/2 inch as we had decided from the previous measurements. And I continued working in that pattern, keeping them 1/2 inch apart in the back, stretching and making sure that they were closer in the back. And you see here that I folded it over once I got to the corner and did my row of staples. They're a little crooked, but hey, you know, it's not perfect. And then I continued with another row of staples on the top. For the most part, my webbing looked pretty good. The spacing was pretty good until I got over to the other side. And then I'm like, okay, where is the spacing? But it still looked good and it worked. And the back looked really good. You see that the back is closer because that is a more narrow piece of the chair. So anyway, it looks really good and I was excited and I couldn't wait to do the other part.
or even middle, whatever you like.
Okay.
Angle. So I would say let's start with one here. Then another one here-ish, let's say. And then one more. And yeah, we should be fine.
So you think we'll have 3?
No, at
Four?
least 4.
Try to
At
do
least
4.
At
Okay.
least 4, yes. So now, because of the angle that we have here, it's very important. Put this in first like that, and then fold it according to the edge of the chair, not to the line of the.
Okay.
So like so, let's say. Stapled and then stretched.
Okay. So I felt really accomplished. I felt like I'd spent so much time tearing this chair down that finally I had a chance to weave it through and really finish this chair off, leaving that 1/2 inch for dust. And I felt like I made some progress. One thing I wanted to point out is that the instructor had told me to get 17 yards of webbing. That's total for this chair. So I just left it on the roll and cut off only what I needed. So, you know, none would go to waste. I stapled in the last piece of webbing just as the instructor had told me to do, and then stretched out the last piece, and I was ready to staple that in place and be done. So I really felt that I'd gotten some progress done today. So by this point, I didn't have very much time left in class, and so I wanted to pull out those springs from the burlap and to cut the twine so that I would be able to place the springs, and when I could do it, you know, as homework, I could tie the strings myself. So this is what it looked like when I had removed the springs in the burlap. But, you know, I only took some really good video of this just in case I needed to look at it for reference for later. But this is what the springs look like. It looked very confusing, and I was trying to find a pattern, but I could not. Anyway, the instructor told me how to just twist them and pull them off of the old webbing, and to cut all of the twine, remove that, just get it off of there. And I think it's going to be a good idea to clean these springs. If you have a chair that you're doing that's an old chair, you might want to put some like vinegar on the springs. These smell just disgusting. So I don't want to put these back in the chair without washing them. So I will wash them at home and just kind of clean them up. So the webbing looked great, and I was ready to move on to the next step, which was placing the springs and marking them. We couldn't secure them, but here's how you mark them.
So this spring have the two top and bottom. Bottom is in this case flat. There are cases both of them are bent up like that. This one is just straight. And so that side is for the bottom, not for the top. So 3 rows, 3 columns.
This is Parkland, yeah, 1, 9, 10.
So now we're gonna follow these lines, assuming they're perfect.
I don't know about that, Michael.
So, for the center, so right here, I put the first one on this one, very close to the front edge.
Okay.
And that one
I'm gonna go and buy one
bent
now.
up and facing toward me.
Okay.
Later on I'll show you why I want it like that, why I want this to be that way, while everything else is facing back.
Okay, so this one is facing this way, and these
Right.
two are facing that way.
And this one and that one are facing
Okay.
back. Okay. So this one goes here and upside down. That way. Now I'm
That
following.
is so pretty.
I'm going with the rows and
Face that one forward.
face this way. Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. That one looks pretty good. That one's good. A little bit more back that way.
Now,
And like so. So it is the bottom of the spring I'm focusing on, not the top. So like if the top of this one is facing and the spacing is very close, while it's further, that's not what I'm concerned. So the bottom, however, is what I'm.
So the bottom is more important to be straight.
It is the only important thing at
Only
this
important thing.
at this moment.
Okay.
Okay. So press these two start from here, the
Okay.
right corner. Pressing this down so it wouldn't slide. Mark them. And as we mark them, we take them away.
Okay.
And best is to keep the same order because they're not necessarily the same, the springs.
Okay.
So let's say this is facing back, that is facing back too, but the end of this one is in the middle, while that is at
Right.
3 o'clock, while that one is at 2 o'clock.
Okay. So we definitely, like I saw in her picture, we want to label these, right? So this is like number 1.
no, that's hers.
Okay.
And so
How do
I
I know this is
usually
number
take
1?
them out and put them like in some kind of order. So number
Okay.
1, then number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Is number 2?
Number 2, and again I'm pressing down. I'm very careful not to shift those. There. And I do
Oh, and you
mark
can
them.
see that. Okay.
Is Woodward Club,
Number 2.
119, right here?
Let me see the address.
It's right here, Parkland. Let me see.
So with the springs marked 1 through 9, I know exactly where they need to be, and my homework this week is to get them tied down to the webbing. So crossing my fingers, it works. Anyway, this project is slow moving. There's still some other cleanup I need to do of the chair, but overall it's coming along. And guess what? Look at the fabric that I chose for this chair. It is absolutely beautiful. It is a blue velvet, and when the light hits it, it actually turns color. So it's got this dark blue shade to it, but then it turns kind of silvery blue. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. And I'll leave a comment below where I got it from. I bought it with my own money, so this is not a sponsored project. Anyway, if you want to stay up to date with this project and see the final result, be sure to subscribe to my blog. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the little bell so you get notified. But go back to thriftdiving.com, enter your name and email, and I'll send you some freebies. And be sure to check out the other videos in this series so you can see exactly how to reupholster a wingback chair. It's a lot of work, but it's really not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. I'll see you next time.